DVassist acknowledges the traditional custodians throughout Western Australia and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of Aboriginal communities and their cultures, and to the elders both past and present. This webinar was recorded on Whadjuk Noongar land. Thanks for joining us on our second DVassist webinar. So today we have Leanne and Merlene from the Financial Counsellors Association of WA. Welcome, Leanne and Merlene.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks for joining us. So let's just start off with Leanne. Can you just introduce yourself, your role, and a bit about the organisation?
Okay, so my name's Lynn Brad. I'm the Sector Quality and Development Manager for the Financial Counsellors Association of WA, and we're the peak for the state to support financial counsellors through their compliance, their professional development, resources and advocacy as well. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Leanne. And how about yourself, Merlene?
Laura, I've been a financial counsellor for over 23 years. I work here at the Women's Legal Service WA. We provide assistance to women with family law issues, so also violence restraining order support and child access issues. So our lawyers will go out and represent clients in court or support them through the process. We also have, they work closely with the Department of Child Protection, and they do have protection and child matters that they attend court to birthing, like when the children are being birthed, and then going on to DCP estates, ward of states. So they do a lot of background work. But that's where I fit in, is when the client's got financial problems. So they might have multiple debts with financial abuse or domestic violence. My service is funded by the Financial Counselling Foundation, and that's just for women in domestic violence, but I also cover the whole of WA. So I take internal and external referrals.
Great, thanks for that, Merlene. So let's start off with the first question, and that's really about how does each of your services, particularly in relation to financial counselling, support someone who lives in regional, rural and remote Western Australia who might be experiencing family and domestic violence?
Okay. So in our sector, we've got 48 agencies throughout the state, and so in every region from up in the Kimberley and Kununurra right down to Esperance in the Great Southern, and it can look very different for different agencies. So I'll give you the view of the sector-wide, where Merlene would have a really great insight into the Women's Legal Centre. So financial counsellors can work with different agencies with different supports and referral pathways and networks. Now, in regional areas, I spoke to the team at the Pilbara Community Legal Service, and they said that the majority of their clients that may be impacted by DV will come through the local police or the local DV support workers or community workers. They wouldn't actually be directly contacted by someone, or it might be a client that's come for some other reason and then it's picked up by the financial counsellor that there might be something happening in the background. They find that it's really hard, like in the regional areas, especially in our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, to outreach. They're less likely to come in to the service, and if they're in community, it's very hard to assist someone in that environment. So that being said, you can understand in regional areas, you've got very built up regions, you've got ones that are more isolated and remote. You'll have agencies that have those DV support workers in there and ones that don't have any. But most of the regional agencies do have in-house services that will cover tenancy, housing, migrant services, so there's a high population of cold community clients there because of their visas. A lot of people work or migrate to the regions. And a lot of those financial counsellors are linked in with community legal centres or local legal services as well to help their clients.
Yeah, what I'm hearing there is kind of that collaboration between the team and really supporting the client with where they're at and being able to link them in with those services that are on the ground. But as you said, it can vary, but usually there is a financial counselling support service within that region, or if not, will be linked in. Yeah. So thanks for that. And what could you help someone with? So you just provided the debt, potentially helping navigate that, but also putting them in contact with support letters for housing, it sounds.
Housing. We also assist them with essentially debts, but we facilitate referrals to the Welfare Rights Advocacy Service. We will facilitate referrals to rural community services with tenancy advocacy. We also facilitate, when I say facilitate, we mean we don't just give the client the number, we actually put a referral through to Circle Green. We do much more than just the financial and the debt and negotiation and advocacy. We also provide, it's the thing is, I'm on the financial counsellor. I've always networked with people in my local area, get to know who, and we all work together. I was just telling Leanne this morning, we need to get back to doing that again. You sort of build your resources and start working with other services. So I have the people that I go to for, like Uniting WA for emergency relief. For the clients, I've got vouchers this morning for clients for food. I will do support letters. I will, speak to tenancy advocates. There's a whole range of, when you think about it, talking about it, it just reminds me just how much we actually do.
Yeah, and I think it's really great to get that out and to, I
also refer clients to the Member of Parliaments, up to the local MPs as well. We would deal with the Ombudsman. I got a conciliation on Thursday with the Ombudsman for the clients. And there's lots of other things we do behind the scenes. Also, we have to network, do our CPD, do our training, our supervision.
Yes.
I think one important point that, and I'll go further to what Merlene is saying, that this is at no cost to the client ever. It's not means tested. It's anyone that identifies as being in financial hardship that will be assisted as long as they require. And the financial counsellor really unpicks this person's situation, brings a sense of calm to them, and they know, like, just to be able to speak to someone and then find options specific to themselves to navigate. The financial counsellor also is in the position to assess the client's capability in actually actioning certain things that they can do to hopefully have the person be able to take care of what they can, and I think that's really important for that client's journey as well. But I want to make mention, Merlene's a fantastic financial counsellor, and we do have financial counsellors in our sector that we deem as probably mentors or really specialise in this area as well. So, and Merlene, like she just said, she really works with other agencies within the sector as well. So you're not just with one person. That client is having, being wrapped around and fully supported, which is important to know.
Excellent. I'm really glad you've both highlighted that, because I can really hear it's tailoring it to what the client needs in that moment and working together to find the solutions and seeing what is possible within the state. And I think it's great that you're engaged with regional, rural and remote Western Australia and their needs. So thank you for providing that.
The other thing I'd like to add to that, Laura, is that just recently we've got a student, second year social work student that was been so good, but she's only got 4 weeks left. And we've also got a client support worker that actually goes to the courts with the lawyers, and then we look at the other ways we can tap into other services and provide them support. They don't actually go out and support them to, like, say, go to the Department of Housing and or go to Centrelink. They can't do that because they're not funded enough to do that. But what they'll do, they come back to me, and then if I need someone to come in the room and I've got an appointment, I hook up one of the social workers now, and we all work together with the lawyer, financial counselor, and the support worker. And then we work different things to do. And I'm trying to encourage them now that I've been here almost 2 years in July, it's taken at least 18 months for the lawyers to understand what I actually do. So, but this is why, we do lots of meetings. I encourage them. I said, I can't tell you what I do because it's not just a financial counselor. We do a lot of other supports as well. Yeah.
Great there. Just that working together, and you've mentioned that calmness that a client would feel, or that's your intention, that you kind of take some of the stress away. And I think that's where being more like a one-stop shop, in the sense of just being able to link them in the best way possible, helps to take that to-do list off them, if they choose to. Of course, it's what they would like to do. But I think that's really shining through what I'm hearing about the financial counsellors as a role, and also the association, that it strives to take some of that stress off and help walk alongside someone in that financial journey of how to make it a bit easier for them.
And the financial counsellor are very supported by the FCAWA as well. When it comes to training, our training needs what we need. When we ask for something, Leanne makes sure we get that training. That, I always put things aside and say, maybe we need a refresher on this, or maybe we need to encourage this. And, because it's important that you meet with social workers and external, stakeholders.
Absolutely. Working together is just, and everyone benefits that way. Okay, so when would someone who might be experiencing family and domestic violence contact your service? So there's kind of, what stage of that journey, I guess, for someone who's experiencing violence?
Well, for me, it's not straight away, because either they'll get referred from the lawyer, and only after they've dealt with their restraining order and their children's matters in court, then they'll find out that they got these debts. So by the time they come to me, it's not in that instant. But I do get referrals from 1-800-RESPECT, a national helpline, and internal with the social workers and the social support, client support workers. So identifying, I'll get referrals from Rua Harmony Refuge, where clients already in a refuge, and also I can tap into that, whether they need my help, is because our lawyers also help with criminal injuries compensation from domestic violence. So then I do the financial part of it. So when they're preparing something for court to apply for CIC, I've got all the financial information for them to take to court. It's already done.
Great.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it comes through referrals, but can someone just pick up the phone and give you a call there and book an appointment?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
We have, if it's urgent, I'll see the client within a day. But I'll do my best. Or even if they can't come in, I'll contact them by phone and do an assessment over the phone. So they'll do a triage. And then I'll either just do it by phone, or, maybe email them some information and where to go and who to talk to, like, Lifeline, crisis care, if anything's urgent.
Is there any criteria for accessing financial counsellors at all?
No. There shouldn't be. Doesn't mean that you may have asset rich, but then you cash poor. So a lot of older people have got this big blocks of land, they've got their houses, but they're battling to pay their rates and their water and their food and their medication. So So it's financial hardship.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that asset rich, cash poor, because that is something that we certainly see with family and domestic violence, that, through coercive control, we might, the couple might have properties and assets, but because of the financial financial violence and abuse, access to that is restricted, and just knowing their rights around access to these assets, how to navigate that system, and being able to pay for legal representation and so forth, it can be very challenging for people of knowing where to start.
And a lot of the services that financial counsellors, we make sure that the services are at no cost as well. So and that no cost doesn't mean not professional or substandard or anything like that. You know, these are professional services that we know that the client's going to be looked at, but it's at no cost to them. So, and those networks and pathways are established and have been built over many years. A lot of the agencies also form part of different programs, so like the Staying Home, Staying Safe program that people would have been aware of. There was also the Economic Empowerment Project that the association did in conjunction with the Women's Council and a few other stakeholders, and that was engaging financial counsellors and refuges to help raise awareness with clients in crisis in regards to their economic, financial safety, money plans, those type of things, being aware of financial abuse. And financial counsellors, part of their role is to provide community education as well. So even your stakeholders, if they were ever inclined or wanted to, we could arrange the joint or collaboration of seminars out to the public, because we feel sometimes you need to go out there and raise awareness rather than wait for people to come and see you. So always open as a sector to meet with other sectors and organisations to see where we can collaborate.
Wonderful. I think that's what was really good about this webinar is just getting the word out about what we all do and how we can support people who are experiencing family and domestic violence.
And there are forums out there that people can attend and spread the word. I did some community education, but just some information with the social workers at Royal Perth Hospital. I had like 30 from Bentley Hospital and Royal Perth, and they didn't know what financial counsellors do. So, and even if there's like the homeless connect, when they have those things, take a store. We talk about financial counselling. Courts could have some of these brochures that what we do is free. Yes. Because a lot of people are going there for fines or stealing food. See, so I used to go to the local court in Armidale when I worked at Armidale Information Referral Service, visit the court and speak to Anne Muir, who was the court support officer. She still is there today, helping them with restraining orders, putting out my brochures there to say, you stole a chop and butter. And this client I knew was coming to me all the time for food vouchers, but stole the butter and a chop. But because the sentencing laws is cut off to a certain point, so it's $300 just for that butter and that chop. So that's the sentencing law. So it is hard. They need to know a bit more about the service that we do.
And I think a lot of clients know through word of mouth. It would be like family or friends say, oh, wow, this person helped me with this.
Yeah, I'm getting that now.
Yeah, which is great, and that's something that we do at DVassist. As you know, we're a telephone and counselling service, but we also advise of local services. So financial counsellors are one that we absolutely recommend, and can link people in with their local regional service. So, okay, so...
Sorry, Laura, what I've also done is I made some notes and I sent it out to all our staff and the lawyers here. Yes. on your presentation the other day. And they were very happy. They were very happy to hear that you had all this, that they can also call on that number, if they need any help.
That's it. So, it's all about working together. And thanks for that, Merlene. It's at the end of the day, it's just those options for clients. And so on that note then, it can, as we know, it can be really challenging for someone to pick up the phone and make that call and speak for the first time that they're experiencing family domestic violence. In relation to financial counselling, How do you, as a service, help someone to overcome that fear or work with that? How do you make them feel comfortable?
They're comfortable. At the moment, we've changed our system. So there's no men. We only assist women. That's the first thing. So they're not going to be afraid to come in here and maybe meet up with some random family member. And at this time, they're really afraid of men because I've been to DV. So when they come into the door, they will come in on their own. They can ring a bell. They're safe once they're in here because no one else can come and go unless we use our swipe card to go out and come back in. And there's no males in at all in the service. We also I got a service agreement where we talk about confidentiality. Make them sign that if I'm opening up a file. If I don't open a file, I'll still explain everything as confidential and private.
Excellent.
And how your records are safe. And then we also have a welcoming staff. I make them. I'm sort of listen very empathetic. I'm a very empathic person, so I listen to them first and listen to their stories, so they start opening up a little bit more. So it's about building a rapport on the first interview, even if it takes an hour before you hear the other stuff. But at least you get that. And I've never had a problem with them engaging.
Great.
Unless of course it's they got too much going on, because if I see a client that's in a refuge, they've moved out already, then they move somewhere else that's sort of north of the river or something like that, or they don't keep in touch because their phones, they've got no credit on their phones as well. So yeah.
But the sector is bound by our code of ethics, where financial counsellors need to be non-judgmental, and also we do a lot of professional development, and in the qualification to become a financial counsellor is, the awareness of unconscious biases, and also of how to, being really mindful of how to bring that sense of calm to the client, so that they understand it's a safe place, because it's really, really difficult for anyone to talk about their financial position, on top of like having DV or anything else going on. It's hard as it is, but I think, the fear, a lot of, I know, working with financial counsellors, they do go above and beyond, and they are working in agencies and with other support services, so they're very much like-minded. They work with social workers, community workers. Most people, and the financial counsellors have worked in community services for many years and have those strong social work backgrounds as well in most instances. So, they're very mindful about the client's experience.
I really feel that. I really feel from both of you and Marlene, I can really sense your passion and commitment. I can really sense that you really want to support the client with where they're at. I am really getting that feeling, and just that collaboration, which, as we were saying earlier, takes a bit of the stress off, allows an open door. Sounds like, the organisation that you work for, they've been mindful about security and just who they might come into contact, and the confidentiality is definitely a big one, but just I can see some of the thought there, and that's really important.
We had to change the access to this building because we're on the first floor. Is because the lawyers were getting followed from the courts. Now the courts are just down the road, so there's a district court, the family court. So they'll be coming down the road and they might get followed. So there was one man that actually followed the lawyer and the clients to the building and was in the front there and abusing everyone. So now we've got special access doors and everything, so that people feel safe. At least we feel safe as well.
Excellent. And can people do appointments over the phone if they're living in regional areas?
Well, we cover WA, so the only way we can do it is over the phone. But I'm very mindful of the local services that are there, and I refer them on. But I'll do the initial urgent thing. If I have to continue, then I will. But I think if they've got a service right there, they have someone that can support them within their own community, I think it'll help.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like that way of working. Okay, so you've given me a bit of an overview actually about what it's like when someone calls or walks into the service. So, it just really is at their pace and they can start wherever they like, and that there's supports there for them. How do you support people who identify from same-sex relationships?
Mel, do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So in regards to LGBTQIA,
right there.
It's when it comes down to the individual. Okay, so what we as financial counsellors need to know is the financial aspects that actually would so that you could have same sex in a couple and their financials might be looked at as a couple, not as single people, which would have been done in the past, and it might have been set up as singles rather than identified as a couple. So those things that our financial counsellors would need to be aware. There is professional development in regards to that client financial counsellors have access to for different community groups and cohorts, and also like disability, diverse cultures. But what we find, like for example, we've got financial counsellors assist in natural disaster recovery. So there's people that identify as that group that haven't actually that their community knows. So they might not like people being, coming into their home or, asking certain questions. So it's kind of like the financial counsellor would be mindful that, focusing on the individual, but then, if there is that support, financial counsellors link people to people. So they might say, okay, like, we can look after this part, like financial counselling aspect, but, maybe you might want to look at some supports in your area for community members that might be able to support you in that respect. So where for us, it's just like the financial responsibilities and things like that, whether it's different for this group.
And I also think as a community, because it's legalized, people are more open about their sexuality, that maybe we can have, because we have had a lot of training with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and culturally involved people. It would be nice to sort of have that working with, like, where to refer people where they're more comfortable, with support services, like LGBTQIA people, because we know about Aboriginal people and the Carl people. We had enough of that. Not enough, but we had enough training. We've done enough of that, but we haven't really had much on. It's not about how to deal with them, but we are the support services for them.
And on our national peak body has a learning module on that. But I think, as Merlene has discussed, it's relatively like new areas of information that are coming, and I think there needs to be a lot more work in establishing those referral pathways, as a social support for those clients.
What I love about this, though, is that non-judgmentalness, that safe space, treating everybody as individuals and as a partnership as they present, and just having that, and
empathy.
I think you make some good points, and just with LGBTIQA+, just how family domestic violence can show up differently. It has a whole other layer of complexity, and just being able to work with that person.
It would be good if we had some research on that. I mean, now that, something that you can say, okay, so this is what the research is, like we do with everything else and every other, issues we have, like homelessness, drugs and alcohol, domestic violence, children, the suicide, all the stuff we have research. So now maybe we can have research on that group of people that are going to domestic violence. And if they want to go into a refuge, where do they go?
Yeah.
So you're not going to put them in a men's hostel because you don't know. You can't put them in a women's refuge. Where do they go when they're getting financial abuse? They can come to a financial counsellor. We don't judge. But where do they go if they've got nowhere to live? So you're going to put them in more danger when they have to go into a men's hostel where most of them are either homeless, drug and alcohol, and will actually put them more into danger because of their sexuality. When they go to prisons, which prison do they go to? You know, we need to look far ahead, because where do they, even women, I mean, what do you call them, women's preferences, where do they go? I mean, I've had a client that was only on the phone. I realized that it was a female with a female in a wheelchair that used to bully her. The person in the wheelchair was bullying her, punching her and hitting her. But, you know, she's trying to get on the phone to talk about financial counselling. And this happened on the National Debt Helpline. And we didn't know what to do for this client.
You raise such good points, and I think what's really important here is that we continue having these conversations and learning, forever learning, and learning from our clients. And I think what's really important is just creating a safe space for all people, And like you said, Merlene, there's no judgment here. And I think this can be such a barrier for all people when they pick up the phone or reach out for an appointment. As you were saying, Leanne, about talking about your financial status, it's uncomfortable for a lot of us, and so, you know, we fear that judgment. And I think for those from all people, it's just no judgment, safe space, and that's what I'm really hearing from the services that you offer.
And seeking an understanding, because no one, like, regardless of who you are, everyone is so different. So like,
Yes.
Yeah, that non-judgmental, like, that's part of our, you know, an integral part of who we are. It's important, but we are learning in every space. I think you never know enough about any community group, and that's something that we are open to learn more about our clients' needs.
Oh, absolutely.
For me, I've got a lot of colored women. Okay, so like I could be aware of the cultural, the culture within how they, you know, their status in there. Like, say, India, they've got different class systems and stuff like that, and how they have to respect their husbands. They grew up with that, arranged marriages and all that stuff. So when I've seen my clients that have got into a refuge, there's not meaning they're going to a refuge. They might go in one day, but they'll leave because their culture is so different to Australian women. Like, they will treat their children differently. They have their old-fashioned ways of, you know, they're very humble. They're not loud. They don't talk out too much. So they can't, you know. So after a while coming to financial counselling, I've actually seen a client that empower them to go do small steps. Talk to your power, but talk to this one, talk to that one, and now they're getting stronger and stronger. And that's part of the Women's Legal Services. Our motto is empowerment. You know, our mission statement is to empower women. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I was actually going to launch into that around working with multicultural backgrounds is understanding their backgrounds and learning from the client and how that factors into the challenges that are current and navigating that together. I really hear that.
So in especially cold clients, so the non-judgmental is really, really important, because family obligations and culturally how people their beliefs about money or what they should or shouldn't be doing are very strong and may not be understood by the broader community, especially, like, you know, when they're not able to survive, but, you know, money is still going to support other family members. And, you know, quite easy for people to say, well, you know, just look after yourself, but they can't, you know. And in the regional areas, there are a lot of visa holders, like people that have just immigrated, and they go to the regional towns, and over there's a big language language barrier. There's no community support, and there's no control over their situation whatsoever. So they're very, very isolated, and a lot of these clients are threatened by the perpetrator that if, you know, they don't conform, that they will be sent back to their country. So there's a lot of, you know, that that stuff that goes on that financial counsellors see. But also on the other hand, and I nearly forgot, financial counsellors will often be visited by the perpetrator as well. That's, you know, presenting as if they're the victim. So they've come because, you know, for whatever reason, and so financial counsellors need to be quite aware of who they're dealing with.
Yes, and that's, I'm glad you brought it up, Leanne, because I'm not working with the perpetrator. So imagine that you must have at least a conflict of interest register in your agency to make sure. But the thing is, also with the Carl people, they can use different names. They got double barrel names, and that's how one of my clients made this guy. But he came in with a false name to Australia. We didn't know he's actually been deported before. He went back and married and came here. And there's a thing such as the dowries. The dowry is you got to pay money or buy a business for someone, and that can be a bit messy when you're doing the financials, you know.
I can really hear you're involved with people from multicultural backgrounds and really able to meet them where they're at and kind of that education on their financial rights and the supports available, which is really
And then
good.
not necessarily going to like, you can provide the client options. You can tell the client what may or may not happen, but at the end of the day, it's the client's journey, and they'll choose the option that's right for them. Whether we, as like the professional in the financial side of things, will go, oh, you know, but that's not for us to decide. That's for the client to you know, to do. So sometimes it is quite sad when you're seeing people in certain situations, and you really, apart from, you know, advising their options, you're quite helpless to help them in certain situations.
Sorry, ladies. Look, I've just got a call. A lady came to the door. I have to call this client, and because she was on a lunch break at work.
No problem.
How long do we have?
A couple more questions, but that's okay. I can stay with Leanne. That's fine if you need to go. No
I'm so sorry, but yeah, she's got to go back to work, and they just said that, oh, she's waiting on my call.
That's okay.
That's
what I love about the service. Very dedicated and committed. So that's great. Thanks for joining us, Leanne.
Thanks, Leanne.
Stay on and we can finish up. Okay.
Thanks, Mel. Good to see you.
Close the call now. Bye.
I think we've covered quite a bit, but just I think a little bit more is just supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. How does the service?
So on as a peak, we have our WA ATSI Financial Literacy Network. So that's staff that predominantly work with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander clients, because that can look quite different out in the community. So some financial counsellors in the remote areas will go to community, or, you know, their services are they have really strong community client bases, and can look different to the metro. I also have WA Yarning Mob, which is staff that identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander and that work in the financial counselling sector, and they are mentors for myself and for the peak. So any situation, issue, even general things that come through, I'd actually discuss that. We meet fortnightly, and it's created a safe place for our members to speak and share and give guidance. So wonderful group to work with. But so with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander clients, it's really hard in the regions at the moment to help them with COVID and lockdowns, and, you know, people having to isolate. Clients still need that face-to-face service. So they're really struggling at the moment to have those supports, and it's really hard, you know, to if you can't access your MyGov to do something, or your payments have been stopped, or whatever. You can't do that on the phone, and most people don't have, you know, these days, to deal with your financial side, you need some form of technology. You know, most people might borrow devices, and you open yourself up to, you know, people taking advantage, or relying on other people to help you with your financial situation as well, which leads to a lot of financial abuse, especially in community, especially the elders. So it's really difficult. But I heard from the Pilbara Community Legal Service, when their community members, it's not really the financial abuse, it's more other, like they might come for emergency relief or, you know, to assistance with bills and things like that, but then they see that the other areas of concern in regards to violence.
Thank you.